and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I just say, I love that you do the pledge because it just takes me back to middle school.
Sorry.
Like I can hear you.
Welcome to those of you joining us from home and to those of you who are here with us this evening. Ms. Vaughn, welcome back on behalf of the school board. And we'll have public participation at this time. Mr. Brown.
For the record, my name is Tim Brown. I reside on Melody Lane in Farmington. In tonight's agenda, item number 9A, Capital Reserve Fund, release of funds. I'd just like to make some comments before the board deliberates this. On 8/19, the school board held a public hearing. I watched the tape again tonight. The public hearing basically said we want to expend funds out of the technology fund. Nobody was told what for. There was a posting in the newspaper. Posting in Foster's also said we want to spend money and wages to expend. There was no subject matter. Yet the ad referenced RSA 19820, Section 2, which requires the publication notice to include a subject matter. The other thing that, with the vote of releasing funds, we have a school policy on bidding, and the number to go out to bid is 5,000. I believe that's the number on the funds that you're looking to release. I looked at the SAU website, and there's no notice for public solicitation that I can find on what you folks are looking to buy. Lastly, my understanding is it's for a school notification app. And before you make a decision on purchasing, there's other things that are included with this type of system. Number one, within the SAU, you have 3 unions. So if a staff member is going to be expected to have this on their personal phone, it opens other doors. It opens a change in working environments. And those working environments are subject to negotiation. Outside of the school, you have police officers that are union members. Again, they don't have MDTs in their cars. Only 2 of them are stipend cell phone users. So if you're going to require that they put it on their cell phones, it opens Pandora's box on a change in working conditions and possibly additional expenditures later on. Lastly, I'd suggest communication, because you're looking at a program that's going to involve your police department, your county sheriff's dispatch, the board of selectmen who oversee the police department, and there needs to be policies in place on what the data is going to be used for, what are the privacy requirements, and what's the policies. So I think what you're trying to do is honorable. I think it's well overdue, but I think there's a lot more thought that needs to go into the process of what's out there. One of the things that's disparaging to me is you're going to spend $5,000 and you haven't even gone out in a public bid that I can find. What about your local taxpayers that are in the business?
Response to that at all? Especially the
public bid part.
well, the public bid part and identifying usage of why we had the public hearing.
Right. The public hearing, I wasn't here for.
Yeah.
But I can speak to the fact that we have a security committee that involves our SRO, our chiefs, police chief, our administrators, fire department chief, and they have been involved in the discussions, as has the sheriff's department through Chief Drury by extension. The decision as to a particular app has not been made, which is why you don't see a bid out yet. And at this point, we have been asked by the sheriff's department that we only have one app for the county, as opposed to the county trying to support multiple apps. And so the county sheriffs are looking to see what they're going to support and recommend out through that way. And so it's coming down. It's certainly in discussion. That part hasn't been ignored. You've brought up some other good points that we do have some policies in place, and probably some others that we need to explore before we get everything firmly embedded.
Please, yeah.
I respect the fact that you have a committee that's doing the research. However, you have a police union. The only one that can do side agreements and negotiation is the Board of Selectmen. and I don't see any communication with the board. You're undergoing an MAU process now. Those lines of communication are being extended. That would be a good avenue to discuss prior to making any decisions of what you're going to implement at the school level.
Noted, thank you.
And what about, I mean, I know Jana and Diana, you guys set up the public hearing initially. What is the board's thoughts on that if we didn't really identify the purpose?
Well, the purpose we identified was to have an alert system in the case of an emergency.
Not in the ad, but I think we have to notify what we're doing, but that's what the point of the public hearing is when we
But,
discuss.
and look, we're not going to rely on my memory, but if Mr. Brown just watched the video and we weren't clear on it, I have no reason to not believe that. I wonder if we should do another one. Can we?
Well, and the reason why it's on the agenda tonight is that there was no vote at the end of the public hearing to expect. So that vote would need to take place. We certainly could table that vote pending another hearing if we need to do so.
What's the board's thoughts?
Can we make the vote and note the purpose at the same time?
Or is that
I think
only through
the
public
issue is Mr. Brown is indicating that the purpose was not clear. Although I feel like we mentioned it was for a system in the case of.
I can read the ad to you.
Well, no, not the
No,
ad,
they
in the
already
public
said in the
hearing,
public
in the
hearing.
hearing
During the
itself.
hearing.
RSA requires the subject matter to be in the ad.
Then I suggest we repost it. I'll make that a motion
For our next meeting,
for our next meeting.
which means we got to jump right on it. 'Cause
Yep.
it's, you know,
We could, yeah, that'll have to go in tomorrow.
Okay.
If we, well, I'll have to look, we've got 10 days, so
Yeah.
if I
It's
can
the
get that in, we'll
23rd,
be
yeah.
quick. Okay.
Could be a 7-day notice, just.
Right, but Foster's needs the lead time, so.
okay. Thank
You
you,
want
Mr.
that
Brown.
in a motion, or
Yes,
post it?
I need a.
I made it.
Motion
so-
by Mrs. Moore and second by Ms. Michael. Any further discussion for September 23rd? All those in favor?
Aye.
And what we'll do is what we typically do, we'll open it up when we start our regular business, and then we'll keep it open for like an hour. But if we can just, be clear on the ad. okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Any other public participation? Okay, hearing none, I'll move. Oh, before we get going, since there are people viewing from home, we have one new face at the table. Can we make an introduction?
Absolutely. I'm happy to introduce Dr. Misty McGarry. She is our new curriculum coordinator.
Welcome aboard.
And we'll get her a name
Because somebody's
tag as
probably
soon as
sitting
we
there going,
can.
who's that lady?
I get that a lot in the hallways right now. Do you work here? Yeah, I do.
All right, let's go to approval of minutes. Minutes of August 5th, 2019, non-public session 5.
And if you look at the printed copy of this, it's actually labeled Public Session 1. It's Public Session 5. It was mislabeled in the...
That was my
Motion by Mrs. Moran, second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion on these.
one correction, change it to 5.
It's going to be mine.
And Vice Chair.
And Vice
And Vice
Chair.
Chair.
yeah.
Chair.
All those in favor as amended? Aye. August 13th, non-public session 1.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran,
Second.
second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion on these.
The change in my title as well.
Yeah. Anything else? All those in favor as amended?
Aye.
Aye. August 13th, non-public session 2.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran,
Second.
second by Mr. Frida. Discussion?
Vice Chair.
All those in favor as amended?
Aye.
Now, that was non-public session 2 from 13,
13, actually.
So-
So for the 13s and the 5, what should abstain?
and, and Stan's listed as absent for 13, it's 2.
Were you
Which,
absent for 2?
I don't, oh.
When it was late.
That wasn't, it came in late. Yep, so do you want to abstain from that vote, or?
Okay.
And Mr.
So-
Lewis, you're...
Yeah, I was on the 5th.
Okay.
Were you here for public session, the public session then for that one? Just not the non-public?
No, he probably wasn't here for public either.
Okay.
That's what it was. I thought he was still out of state. Remember?
Right. So
Yeah.
he should be on the public as he came late, he probably wasn't here for public.
Well,
Or
doesn't
was he
she
here
have
for
that? She said
part-
has that he joined at 7:32.
Was he here for part of public?
Yeah, it says he joined at a certain time, so.
Yeah.
Two, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, 7:34.
So we're fine. Okay. August 13th, non-public session 3.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. McElhenney,
Second,
second by Mrs. Moore. In discussion?
same change.
Same change. All those in favor as amended? Aye.
Abstain.
One abstention. Public session, August 19th.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. McElhenney.
Do you not have,
Oh, wait, do you not have,
Do it.
yeah,
do you not have this one in
the
there?
August 13th, non-public session 5?
Actually, it's
not on the
it's
agenda.
not on the agenda. It was in the folder, but it got left
Oh.
off the agenda. So I don't know if you want to table it or if everybody can.
I don't want to table it as long as everybody, it's not like it's a long.
No, we can still,
need to.
yeah, that's fine. Do I have a motion for non-public session 5 for August 13th? So moved by Mr. Frieda, second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. One abstention. Okay, August 19th, public session. So moved by Mrs. Moran. We just want you to be the associate chair. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Frieda. Discussion on these?
I did send you the adjournment. Did you get that?
Yeah, I'll add it to the.
Okay.
I just copy and paste the next advice.
This is August 13th session. Did you guys just say August 19th?
August 19th.
We made a motion for August 19th, public session.
So we do this one already?
We didn't have this one on the list either.
Oh, 4 and
We'll
5.
go back. We've got this one right now on the
worries.
table. Everyone all set with this as amended? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, August 13th, non-public session 4.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran, second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion? Just the same change. All those in favor as amended? Aye. And one abstention. August 19th, non-public session 1.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. McElhenney,
Second.
second by Mrs. Moran. Discussion? Just the title change. All those in favor as amended?
Aye.
Non-public session 2 from August 19th.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran, second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion?
I just wanted, there's a typo in one of the motions on the first page where it made to move out of non-public session at 9:08 and then Linda, I don't know what the beginning of a sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that as our names. It was Linda and Penny
Motion
in those.
made
Oh,
by.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And are we using first names or?
No,
Okay.
must have been late in the night when I did that one. But I'll catch it.
All those in favor as amended?
Aye.
Non-public session 3 from August 19th.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran, second by Mr. Frieda.
You don't have a second on the motion.
On the motion, yeah. On the salary.
Yeah.
For some reason, I want to say that it was Mr. Lewis.
I can check my rough notes.
But
You
there's
check
no,
them
there's
now,
no
or
vote either, yeah.
do you want us to?
No, just keep going and I'll check.
So we need the vote and who seconded it.
Right, so you want to withdraw that motion for now?
Yeah, I'll withdraw my motion.
All right, so non-public session 4 from August 19th.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs.
Second.
McElhenney, second by Mrs. Moran. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. I don't have session 5.
I think that was one that, it should have been the one from 13.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
just
I don't
cross
remember
that.
5 on that night.
No, I don't.
I don't believe there was.
Okay. Anything, Ms. Geiser, before we move on?
Can we update the agenda just as, so when we go back and look, we will know that we approved those minutes, even though they're online?
Yes.
Sometimes if it's on the agenda,
Yes.
it just makes it.
And I've also added to the website a folder so that the agendas are also captured rather than just disappearing off the website.
Okay.
We're going to be going back and repopulating the agendas so that those are also there if somebody needs kind of the index for a meeting rather than scrolling through 20 pages of meeting to try to figure out when something happened.
Oh, great idea.
So,
Got anything, Mrs. Geiser? No?
Yeah. All right, I'll motion to table.
Motion to table, which was non-public session 3. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Michaelini. All those in favor? Aye. We'll go back to that. All right, moving along to policies.
policies. In my absence, there were several policies that were done. I have a whole list. We're in the process of trying to get everything back over to the website the way that it needs to be. In the rescinding of policies that were numbered and the lump adoption of some of those, there were some policies that were missed, and as I went back through some of the older minutes, there were policies that have been brought forward for a first read that never hit the second read. And so the first 3 that you have here, actually it's the second 3 that I'm bringing back to you for second and or final reads, BEA, IFA, and JLCG.
And then A through C is a...
And then A through
first
C,
reads.
these are first reads. JEC, we had as a numbered policy. It's required by law. When the numbered policies were rescinded, that one went away. We need to have it. We didn't have it as a lettered policy. That one is manifest educational hardship. What you have is from the New Hampshire School Boards Association. It is an update to what we had, so we were going to need to revise it anyway, but it is one that we have to have in place. And so if there's any way that this one could be a final read tonight, that would be delightful. If we can't, then this needs to be fast-tracked anyway.
A motion to accept it as a final read, JEC, change of school or assignment, manifest educational hardship.
I'll second.
A motion by Mrs. Moore and a second by Mr. Frieder as a final read. Discussion on this policy? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, EEAEA.
EEAEA and EEAEB.
Yeah.
These are companion policies. Do you want me to speak to these, or? Okay. We had a policy, EEAEA, which is controlled substance and alcohol testing for our drivers. It is required by law for our CDL drivers. The law is silent around our non-CDL drivers, our van drivers. But for our protection and for the protection of our drivers, we really feel it's important to make sure that we have in place something for our non-CDL drivers as well. I don't want there to be an accident and say, well, I'm sorry, we didn't have to test that one. So I want to make sure that we have everything covered. We have a pool that we can have our non-CDL drivers in, like we do for our commercial driver's licensed drivers. They can be randomly tested, but we have to have a policy in place in order to do that. These have both been to legal. There are revisions that have been also made to the CDL drivers to make it a little bit more robust in terms of what we can expect from that. And I think that these are certainly policies that should be robust. So that's where those come from. We really have a deadline of being able to get our drivers into the pool by October 1st, is that correct? Or
No, that's when this current year's pool ends.
Okay,
right?
so we need to start the next, and would like to have that in place in order to get them into the next group.
I will make the motion to accept as a final read.
Both of them?
Yes.
Motion.
EEA, EA, and EA. Yeah.
Motion by Mrs. Moore to accept both policies for CDL and non-CDL as a final read. They've been revised by legal. Second by Mr. Frieda. Discussion?
We need to have a date adopted addendum.
Oh, certainly.
Into the policy.
Yep.
I think that was my only.
So we'll add tonight's.
For
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
Yes,
Any
absolutely.
other discussion? All those in favor with the added date of approval? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. So second read on
Second read.
BEA.
Yes.
Or final.
Right, and this was
Oh,
brought
yeah.
forward looking to put in place a regularly scheduled board meeting. I know that at one point last spring, there was a calendar that was proposed for board meetings for the upcoming year. That was tabled. And then when this was brought forward, it was tabled because not all board members were present, and they wanted to make sure that full board input was had before you went forward with it, which certainly makes sense. State law requires that a board meeting is held at least once every 2 months. You have more than beat that. And the other,
To bring our pajamas if we only met every 2 months.
yeah, we'd need to start as a luncheon. And
I prefer that we keep it the first and third Mondays
Yeah,
unless there's a holiday involved, which,
Yeah.
happened this month.
Yeah.
The community is used to it.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I think some of our schedules are scheduled
Around it.
accordingly, so, so I think we should insert
So,
that language.
would you like it written first and third Mondays unless there is a Monday holiday?
Or as directed by the,
No, I think just.
Unless otherwise determined by board action, which we would,
Okay,
which we
right,
would
you would
take, it's
do it.
already in
Okay,
there.
yep.
I think if
Okay.
we had first and third Mondays, it's fine.
Okay.
Any other conversation on this?
Do we have a motion on it?
Did we have it?
No?
No, we didn't have a
I'll
motion.
move we accept as a final read.
Okay,
With
with the
the,
insertion of first and third Mondays. Motion by Mr. Frieda, second by Mrs. Moore. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, IFA.
IFA is also another required piece. This is, again, boilerplate, and we'll need to add the adopted piece. I believe that this one came from, I think it was in April that it was a first read, but I'll go back and get that number for you. It's, again, acknowledging that instructional needs for individual students vary, and that we will recognize that in our instruction. So, and it is required by law.
Stan, I'm going to ask you a question. Didn't we start saying that we were going to put the policies up that we were considering online so the community could see the policies before we adopted them?
Yeah, I thought so. I thought we would have
All right.
a non-adopted and a
And
draft
adopted,
version and a regular.
but nothing's.
Well, this had already come to you as a first read, so
Right.
I don't know if that happened on which side of that decision.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if that been happening regularly?
I don't know.
Okay.
Whether,
Well, that's something that when you meet with the policy committee that you guys can
yeah.
bring up. So, all right, that's my question. Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept it as a final read.
Motion by Mrs. McElhenney, second by Mr. Frieda. Any discussion?
It was first read on April
Oh,
1st.
so it's a final read, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, April 1st?
April 1st.
Oh, my goodness. All those in favor? Aye.
And then JLCG, exclusion of students from school for illness, that was brought forth as a first read on June 3rd.
A motion to accept as a final read.
Motion by Mrs. Moore to accept this as a final read. This is exclusion of students from school for illness. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Frieder. Any discussion?
Just to add the date.
Date adopted.
Mrs.
And
McElhenney?
the only question I had was, it only says the school nurse, but what do we do in the event if the school nurse isn't in that day? Do we want to put a line in?
In the event
Do
a
we need
school
to?
nurse isn't in, we
Okay.
typically have a backup of a nurse from
Okay.
another school. So it'll be a nurse,
A school.
yes, a school nurse, just maybe not that school nurse, yes.
District
That's a
nurse.
fine
Yeah,
line.
does-
You're putting that power to a nurse versus administrator to approve the recommendation by a nurse?
We can certainly say it's in conjunction with administrative, but again, it's, the school nurse is the one with the medical training, not the
Yeah.
administrator.
As I said, but it should be noted that administration should have some, at least communication going on here. It sounds like the nurse is
Should
determined.
that be in the policy?
The nurse should, the nurse is responsible whether a student should be excluded.
Yeah.
The administration would be the one that excused them, I would assume. Since it would be the principal of the school or the building. So they just determined that they should be dismissed.
Yeah, I think you should interpret the should.
I mean, you start to get into policy versus procedure,
Right.
but it can be modified if you see fit.
I don't.
I don't see the need myself. Yeah.
I don't either. I get what you mean.
Yeah.
But boy,
But it stands
I would certainly hope,
Should.
you know,
Right,
working
but
together.
it's also health related, so.
well, yeah,
Right.
If they're
but,
contagious, you want to keep it kind
I
of
mean, the building
quarantined.
administrator is responsible for every action,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
But unless we experience problems with this policy, let's approve it as this, and we can certainly revisit it, so. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, now we get down to reports. We get to hear from our,
I do want to make,
Something else?
just very quickly, I'm going to put into the packets, and I can put them up as not yet adopted so that we have, there are about another 11 or so that were kind of left hanging between, that are required policies. So
Okay.
I didn't want to put them all on tonight with the length of the agenda, but those are other pieces that we'll need to do. So I
Okay.
have them in a folder, I can send them in your direction.
So each of our schools who will be giving a report briefly, I'm sure it's a brief report because we're only a little ways in here. Each school has a new administrator. So as they take the mic, Ms. Vaughn, I'd like you to introduce, or we can even have, I think one school is going to have two introductions. So we are going to start with Valley View. So Mr. Roberts, come on up. And we can introduce his assistant.
Sure.
Or we can have Mr. Roberts introduce him, whatever
Would you
works.
like to introduce, or do you want me to?
Okay.
All right.
We want to get you on camera.
Hi, good evening. I'm Paul Roberts, principal of Valley View Community School. To my right is Blake McGarry, who's the assistant principal there at Valley View. He'll have a few words as soon as I'm done, and we'll go from there. As of right now, Valley View has 265 students. Our annual open house was on August 27th. 76% of students and parents attended. We also have the resource fair and the NPR. There were 15, boy, I hope I got this number right, 15 community organizations were represented. Fresh Picks provided snacks and samplers for parents and students. The following groups, though, offered prizes for the raffle. The Girl Scouts, Geska School Photos, Goodwin Library, Farmington PTA, Boy Scouts, and the Farmington Police Department. Last spring, the Farmington Police Department brought to me some of the woodwork that was done. I believe it's called the Red Shed on Route 11. I don't exactly remember how the Farmington Police ended up with some of them, but they brought them to us and said, would you like them? It's okay. And so one of those was raffled off on open house night. The other community organizations that were represented were the Town of Farmington, the Boy Scouts, Farmington Fire Department, Blessed Bargains, Holy Rosary Credit Union, Farmington Historical Society, Puddle Dock Press, Circle of Hope, Community Action Partners, and Options. Farmington Fire Department did bring up some of their equipment, and people took the time to talk with the firefighters, had a chance to kind of look at the equipment close hand. Some of the things that we're planning to continue that we started last year, developing the Tigers theme. We're looking to incorporate ideas from the Jesse Lewis Choose Love movement. The Choose Love movement grew out of the Sandy Hook tragedy where Jesse Lewis lost his life. The program is evidence-based, social emotional classroom program. And we actually have several teachers at Valley View that are piloting the program this year. Valley View Safety Committee will continue. We meet once a week. We'll be, again, reviewing the school emergency plan. We also evaluate. It's not that we conduct, which was a mistake in my writing. When a drill happens, one of the first things that we do after the committee meets is to talk about the drill that happened, if anybody sees things that worked well or didn't work well, and then try to figure out a way to make it work better. The other thing that Mr. McGarry and I will be doing this year, we have kind of stationed ourselves by the fire hydrant at the parking lot, just in the afternoon, trying to help direct traffic, especially people who have picked up their sons and daughters, to get them so they can get out of the parking lot, because the traffic at dismissal is pretty thick. So, any questions? Yes.
Just a quick question. What is MPR?
The multi-purpose room.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Frieda.
Just to comment, the Historical Society and the Puddle Dock Press was not aware that prizes were sought for that. Perhaps a little bit of communication when we were more than happy to be also graciously giving you something.
Okay.
Next year, it's on camera.
Well, that's why I did it.
Yeah, exactly. I will make sure.
We just didn't know.
Yeah, I will make sure I make a note. Okay, so.
I love the Choose Love, that's happening up at Valley View. I don't know if it's happening at any of the other buildings, but I love that initiative is being brought to Farmington.
Yeah, and actually, one of the movers behind the initiative actually is Blake. So without further ado, I guess I'll let Blake introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Blake McGarry. I just want to say, first off, I'm very excited to be part of the Valley View Community School and the SAU and the town of Farmington. Everyone's been extremely welcoming, and like I said, I couldn't be more excited to start a school year, so thank you for the opportunity. Just to give you a little background of myself, I've been in the educational field for the past 14 years. This is my second role in administration, and it's been great working with Mr. Roberts, and for you Valley View parents out there, wherever the camera is, your kids are wonderful, and I look forward to working with them all year. So thank you very much again for the opportunity.
Welcome, Mr. McGarry. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Wait, change that up. We didn't go in any kind of order here.
Well, I came down the hill.
Yes, oh, okay, coming down the hill. Farmington High School. Mrs. Gardner? On behalf of the school board, Mrs. Gardner, welcome back.
And would you like to introduce your...
Hi, I'm Barbara Gardner, the principal at Farmington High School. And to my right is Mr. Eric Larkham, our new Dean of Students and Athletic Director for the high school. And he'll get his turn in a few minutes. So this year opened with our freshman orientation day, which was amazing. We have a great group of freshmen. They loved the team building, and it was really nice to have them be able to come into the high school ahead of all the other students. It gave them that bonding time with all the teachers. And our annual open house will be on September 19th from 6:30 to 8. I'm hoping that we have a packed house, so please come on down. The high school enrollment at this time is 255 students. And this year, our building is currently working on two goals. One is building culture and leading learning. And both of those lead to student success and adult success in the building. So we are really focusing on the values for those. Also, in October, Coffee with the Principal will start in the mornings. So we'll be doing the school messenger for parents. And our first Coffee with the Principal is going to focus on vaping. So please, parents, if you want, and community, if you want any information and more, our first one will be dealing with vaping in high school. And I will turn it over to Eric.
Okay, good evening. So my name is Eric Larkham. I am the new Dean of Students and Athletic Director. I just want to, first off, thank you again, for people that went through my process that had this opportunity to kind of bring leadership to this school community. I'm excited. I've had a whirlwind of a couple weeks here that playing different roles, trying to learn where everyone's at in the community. It's been real fun so far, and I've enjoyed it. People really accepted me already, and I'm ready to kind of instill what I want to do here in this community. A little bit on athletics. We did kick off here last week. We had soccer opening up, boys and girls soccer. We had Epping coming to town, the Blue Devils. We went 1-1. The boys did defeat the girls. The boys defeated Epping Blue Devils, but the girls did not come on top. But we also kicked off football this past Saturday as well, going against Winnisquam, the top program, and then volleyball kicks off this week. I believe on Thursday, something like that. But schedules are online. If you go onto our website, I did put a link on there. Starting to slowly but surely update that website so there can be a little more communication on that side of it. But fall sports have started, and they will continue for a while. So, again, I thank you, everyone, for the welcoming, and I'm excited to be here.
Welcome, Mr. Larkham. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Larkham or Mrs. Gardner? No? Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Henry Wilson.
So I'm happy to introduce Mr. Matt Castangwe, who is our Henry Wilson Memorial School principal, and I will let you do the other introduction.
Doesn't really need an introduction, from what I hear anyway. Good evening, everyone. I am Matt Castangwe, the new principal at Henry Wilson, and I am so excited to have started the school year here in Farmington. As Blake said, everyone has been just so welcoming. It has been great. We had such a terrific start to the new school year at Henry Wilson. I'm very excited to get to know the school community and the community as a whole. Things have been just going really, really well. I do want to give a shout out to our amazing teachers and staff at Henry Wilson for all their hard work during the summer in preparation for another school year and welcoming the students back. We had an extremely, extremely smooth opening. We had our open house the night before school started on Tuesday, August 29th. It was very well attended with our highest attendance numbers in grades 4 through 6. Last week I had the privilege of meeting with our student body by grade level individually. So they are able to get to know me better. We discussed school expectations, respect, what it is, what it looks like, and the TIGER acronym. We also discussed a school-wide challenge for the school year, which will also correlate with our social emotional learning that we'll be doing throughout the year, and that's do something awesome for someone else. So we did a lot of talking with our students about that last week. We will be meeting with each grade level once per month to continue the discussion and just work with our students directly, which I think is just so important. We did have a safety concern to start the year with early drop-off with our students. Unfortunately, students were arriving to school even prior to 7 a.m., which does present some unsafe conditions for our students, not being supervised. We've had ongoing discussions, as you know, not only at the school level, but at the SAU level, and there's already been a big problem now turning to a much smaller problem. So thank you to our parents who obviously had to, work and accommodate their own schedules so that we did not have a large group of students outside being left attended several minutes before our official drop-off time. So, I'm really psyched that, we saw a problem, we were able to work together and very, very close to solving it. And we also are looking at our pickup procedure in the afternoon so that it goes a little smoother and quicker. I don't know if we'll be able to solve, the entire pickup procedure, but we are in talks as a staff to look at that and just see how, things can be a little bit safer with parent pickup and bikes going down the hill and walkers, coming in and out of traffic as well. So without further ado, Mrs. Pomeroy, who, by the way, thank God she's here, coming into Farmington and being new, Mrs. Pomeroy knowing the school, she's just been so helpful in so many ways, and I think hopefully she would agree that we already make a pretty good team.
We'll see in 6 months. So I pretty much know everybody, but I'm Giselle Pomeroy. I'm starting my 16th year at Henry Wilson, and this is my first year as an administrator there. We had a great start to the school year, and I'm really excited to have Matt with us. So I think it was a really good choice for Henry Wilson and for Farmington. So thank you.
May I ask a question? Was this the first time we tried open house the night before school started? No, we've done that before?
I think this is the second night. Fourth grade has had it for several years now to alleviate that anxiety of fourth graders.
Yeah.
And then I think last year was the first year we did it for the whole school.
I like it.
Yeah, it's nice.
I like
it's nice
it.
for the kids.
Yeah. Questions for the team?
I think you get better attendance having it that time frame too.
Yeah.
People
Yeah, they know where,
getting
this
excited
is
about
that
starting the year.
curiosity. Yeah.
and they know where they're going to start the day, that it's not that.
And it avoids the old question, how's he doing? It's like, oh, we just started. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Mr. Castonguay, welcome, and Mrs. Pomeroy, congratulations on your new role. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Financials. We're not clapping for you. No. Any
So,
highlights?
Well, it's early in the year. I'm looking at the August ones. I do have some updates on the closing figures for 18-19. As Ms. Vaughn is aware, and as Mr. Shagnon is aware, we had an engagement scheduled in the middle of August with our auditing team, just because last year we had the conclusion of 5 audits in a row, and there were several non-conventional audit adjustments that were made to help reconcile that and to move forward. And with the change in the transition in staffing and the fact that I wasn't here for the audit, nor was I here for that fiscal year, I didn't feel comfortable trying to unwind some of those journal entries. As I said, we'd scheduled an appointment months ago on the 15th, and due to a death in the family, the auditor was unable to attend on that day. We rescheduled, but it wasn't until like the 23rd of August, which is very late in this time. So he came in, we've been working together since that time. We've had to make a bunch of different journal entries. I'm working very closely with him so that going into our audit, which is formally scheduled for October, as is our, I guess I should say, it's not our usual, but that's our new norm. So going into October, we should have a much smoother audit because a lot of this work is getting unwound now. and we're working together to make sure that that's done the right way, and that I'm not tossing numbers out there that I
Can't stand behind.
Can't stand behind, exactly. But I do have some numbers to share, and mind you, these are unaudited financials. This is where we're at right now. That doesn't mean that it wouldn't change when we do our audit in October, but we are in the final stages of preparing the MS-25, which is the first document that starts the tax rate setting process. So there were three things that, and I had made the board aware of two of them, that we needed to reclassify some funds that had been off to the side. There was a preschool and E-rate fund, if you recall me speaking about those. So I knew that those were coming back into the general fund under the advice and the guidance of, our auditors and our attorneys. So we talked about those. We had another item that was a lingering item on the balance sheet from way back when you guys were joined with Middleton that is coming back to the general fund. So with those three things together, the total fund balance was up to $1.3 million by bringing all those back in. We have committed fund balances of $225,000 that were voted in March, so you would need to take that part out. Those were for different replenishments of capital reserve. We have an encumbrance, accounts payable encumbrance that we still are paying at this point, so we have to deduct for that $18,000. And then this district has voted to accept RSA 198:4B, which is to create a budgetary fund balance retention of up to 2.5% of your net assessed value. So when you deduct, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. If you would like to continue with that, you have the option until rescinded to do that. If you would like to do that, I have that number for you. We can vote to do that. And then after all is said and done, and again, this is an unaudited figure, what I have with the auditor tonight is $973,200, which would be our unassigned fund balance available if we retain the max and we do the other things. So
that's what would be returned to the town?
Correct. So that 2.5% set aside, that's that emergency contingency
Right.
fund.
Yeah.
And that's a figure that is based on last year's
it's based on net assessments,
net
net property assessments.
And so,
But that's not reduced from the 973?
that has been taken out already, so
Right, okay.
973 would be the leftover.
Right.
And that's assuming that you would vote to do that. We would need a vote in order to retain that. You have the right to do up to 2.5%. You don't have to retain the entire 2.5%.
And 2.5% is $177,978 per the Department of Revenue.
And those funds can only be tapped in the event of an emergency, and then with the blessing of both the Budget Committee and the Commissioner in order for us to tap that. So it's not just a contingency fund that we can tap if something cool comes up. It needs to be an emergency.
But this is unaudited numbers, so these aren't
are
unaudited
unaudited
numbers.
We won't have audited numbers until October because we closed the year as of June 30th. We're making adjusting entries, but the auditors have to come and do their attestation before we can get an audited final figure.
And so the MS-25 goes basically on our best understanding of where we are now. We do have an extension on that will take us through the end of September. It goes to October 1. And that's largely in part because we're at the mercy of our auditor's schedule right now.
But that was due September 1st.
We filed
But-
the extension before the deadline per the
Okay.
protocols of the state.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was because we weren't able to meet with them in time to unwind those pieces before that. So.
Mr. Frieda.
So should we wait on a vote to set aside the 2.5% until we have a real figure?
You will have enough
You'll have plenty
to
for
do
that.
to do the 2.5%. That's not the issue.
Our auditor feels that even if there are some adjustments, they will not be of the material nature, that's a fairly decent number. There may be some slight variation, but.
And I do want to say that, our audit is on schedule. It's that unwinding of those anomalies from the holdover that we're still working on. So just get with that out there.
I'd like to see where in the budget this money wasn't spent. That seems like a...
There were, the final expenditures for June, I can give them to the board again, but there were several, it was a compilation of different things. We had some salaries that weren't expended. We had some facilities items that weren't expended. There were little things throughout.
Right.
But, you also have to understand, I started here in February.
Right.
And the last thing I was going to do, there were things that weren't encumbered. There were expenditures that were still coming in that I was still getting familiar with at the end of the year. And the last thing that I wanted to do was overextend the budget for this town.
Oh, absolutely,
If anything, I was very conservative about, we purchased the things we were going to purchase. We were carefully reviewing things into that end of the year. But I can tell you that even with the way that things ultimately did spin out, we had unanticipated expenditures for legal. We had unanticipated expenditures for other different things. So, and not knowing what to do about some of the adjustments that were put on for the audit last year, some of them were some pretty big numbers. So, and as I said, this number includes almost $250,000 in funds that were carried elsewhere last year. Well, it's not that they weren't there, but they weren't carried in the general fund.
Okay, thank you. I think that's important. People are going to
Ms. McGarry?
ask.
Just some questions. I don't know if you received from me the list of questions that the Budget Committee had asked at the most recent meeting.
Yeah, you sent it from a
Gmail,
email,
yeah.
and it went into my spam folder, and I didn't find it until you resent them today. But I have an email response to you that you'll have by the end of tonight. I've shared it with Ruth Ellen to take a look at some of the...
Oh, perfect, okay. Yeah, as long as we can just get those answers, just so I can have them for the next budget meeting. Great.
What is the date of your next budget meeting?
I don't remember offhand.
Okay, well, we'll have them by tomorrow as best we can.
Oh, yeah, no, it's,
Fourth?
I think it's the fourth Wednesday.
It's probably the 25th.
Okay, you'll
Yeah.
have it before then?
Perfect.
Okay.
Some of them were just pretty weighty questions, so I just wanted to make sure I had enough time to get the answers.
I spent the afternoon, I've got most of them done, but
Oh, wow.
I wanted Ruth Ellen to take a look at them.
No, appreciate it.
Any questions on financials? Any specific questions?
I had a question on health insurance as I was going through. All of the health insurance line seems to be overexpended by like $140,000.
I wasn't part of putting the budget together last year, but we have had some dialogues about looking at that going forward. Some of it is variable because it depends on what people choose. Some of it has to do with some staffing shifts. You'll find excess in some health insurance lines in some places and negatives in others. And that's normal, depends on what people pick. We've had an enormous amount of staffing changes, so at least from the administrative standpoint. So somebody that would have chosen maybe a two-person jumping up to a family with a different person that picks something different, that all impacts it.
Oh, yeah. As I was going through that, just stood out to me.
I didn't add it yet. You're good.
Questions? Other questions?
Well, I'll move that we set aside the 2.5%.
Which we don't exactly know the figure yet, but if we
Yes,
move
you do. It's
177,978.
So that's the figure.
That's the figure that you're setting aside.
That's the 2.5% that you are allowed to set aside.
It's based on your net assessed tax value.
Okay.
Yeah. And that won't be changing.
Okay, that will not change. Motion by Mr. Frida. Second by Mrs. McElhenney. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Aye.
And one sure, 177,978. You're welcome. And next year, my hope is that this vote that you just took now will be happening in June. We just weren't able to do that this year because we didn't know where we were going to land.
Okay. And you said you have met with the auditor, or you're
I've been working with him every day since August 23rd.
Okay.
The other piece on financials that I want to make the board aware of, and I don't have hard and fast numbers yet, but I want to make sure that it's in your understanding. I went to the state superintendent's meeting last Friday, and the person from DHHS who is in charge of Medicaid met with the superintendents to let us know where things are going. On August 27th, there was an emergency set of rules that were put into place because the current rules were expiring, and they were concerned that we wouldn't be able to bill Medicaid at all. So they put in new rules, and they are going to strongly impact our revenues for Medicaid in the negative. We are going to be limited in what we are able to bill. We are going to be having to restructure some things, and I'm looking at revising those revenues when we do our MS-24 with the DRA for our tax setting, because it will be impacted greatly. I'm thinking to the tune of $100,000 plus.
Wow.
So they're still unwinding that, but I'm not optimistic at this point.
Okay. Anything else? Yes.
Oh, before we move from reports, I just had something to say, unless you still want to talk about financials.
Nope. I'm going to move something up here in a minute, but go ahead.
I just also, since we already had all the principals put forward a report, I'd also like to bring it to the board the suggestion that we have the SRO start coming to the meetings at least once a month to give a report. I feel that would open up a lot of communication in that regard, and I just wanted to open that up for discussion.
I think it's a great idea.
How does his or her contract? Because it used to be an hourly
She's
rate.
not an administrator.
But it's not, so you're going to have to pay that person to attend? So it's going to take time out of the school? So how's that going to work if we do that?
It could be part of the MOU as well.
Right.
I mean, we are
Embedded into
working
that.
on creating a new MOU. It could be part of the MOU to, even if it was quarterly, something to get our SRO in front of
I think it's a good idea.
in front of the community and put it, I mean, a lot of people, unless you come to school here, you wouldn't know who the SRO is right now.
At this point, I think I could certainly request that she come. I don't know that I could mandate it with the current structure that we have. But I think it's something that we certainly should pursue.
I think it would be a good bridge to
absolutely.
the community as well.
So you want to start that dialogue then?
I'm happy to.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Linda, for that suggestion. So that our administrative team is here also to talk about, give us some feedback regarding proposed evaluation instruments. So, and that's kind of later on the agenda, but I'm going to move it up so that you folks can, still have a night that's fairly early. So can we jump to that now under old business? And I don't know who's going to facilitate that discussion, but.
I'm going to let principals take the lead on that.
Okay.
And you do have the instruments in your packets if you need to refer to those.
So, as administrators, all of us met to discuss the evaluation process and the rubrics and looking over. We liked the Nashua one, which is this one right here, just so everybody can see. And in the discussion too, I just wanted to point out that improving how principals are evaluated should only be the first step. It's equally, if not important, to consider what comes next in the evaluation process, including how to encourage professional growth, how to help build a principal's leadership capacity. I know that, that we get our evaluations late February, but looking at the rubric here, it's nice because this is something that we can do on an ongoing basis, and we're not waiting to see that evaluation that comes out in February, and it's something that we can work on. Do you want to talk about it? Okay. And we felt that this rubric met exactly what we feel like we do and gives us a nice range that we can work towards.
So was it the whole admin team? Was it that kind of a process, or
It was the
whole-
principals and assistant principals met together.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Because
And then-
that was my understanding of the feedback that
Yeah.
we were looking for.
And then, have you looked at the evaluation tools?
These two?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have. And I'm certainly in agreement with what they're saying. I think it makes sense. I think it's certainly one that we can work with.
When you, Mrs. Gardner, did you refer to as Nashua? Is this coming from the Nashua School District, or?
Well, you gave us two to evaluate, and this one just says Nashua's.
Okay.
So we went with that in terms of giving it a title.
There, thank you, yes,
Right.
yes.
But we like this one too because it's from a growth mindset, and all of our buildings were all working on the growth mindset, and this one took that into account for principals as well, and
Okay.
assistant principals.
Any thoughts from the board? Is this something we're looking to adopt tonight? I would assume.
I would assume, but certainly.
Which one were, we have three, right?
It's,
We have-
There was two.
Yeah, we have three in our packet.
well, there are three in the packet, and
No, I put in the report just as a
Okay.
Oh, okay.
information
Okay.
report. It's
Oh, all right.
not really a tool, it's just
Okay.
a report about it.
it's the one that has the appendix T in the upper right-hand corner.
I just had a question. What were the thoughts on frequency? Do you guys feel yearly? Do you feel that there's any requirements where 6 months might be more appropriate?
Well,
Any thoughts in that regard?
I think the model that they've looked at, part of the, is because it's an ongoing dialogue throughout the year. It's not a one-time evaluation. And so this would be an ongoing conversation between the administrators and myself. It's not a one-shot deal, which is, I think, much better. I would like to see us move more towards something like this for the teachers as well down the road. But I think this is a good first step.
Okay, I was just trying to think of, in terms of tracking, I guess, how often, I mean, I realized that it would be an ongoing item. I just didn't know if you guys thought anything beyond that.
There's still a formal piece to it, I would assume,
There is.
by contract.
There is, yes.
Yeah.
So, but this would go hand in hand with that formal piece, so you would be able to reflect back on
an ongoing conversation.
ongoing, yeah.
And our professional development and our goals that we set at the beginning, we can tie back with this. The other evaluation system that was in place when Paul and I were here felt like it didn't allow for that. So that we can show, hey, our professional development went towards this and how we're growing and how we are meeting the rubrics that we have set now.
Great.
Yeah, my professional development notebook is essentially based on meetings, is the layout is, I mean, because I believe they're called the ISLIC standards, and that's what I've been using when I was here and also when I was up at Alton, was the ISLIC standards.
Thank you.
Do you want to make a motion to adopt it?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Lewis to adopt this model.
Can we
And
give it a name before? This model just doesn't really work for me.
Well, I think it's the effective principal rubric, and we can, call it Farmington's effective
so you
principal
just
rubric.
name onto it.
Yeah.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Lewis, is that okay to call it Farmington's
Absolutely.
effective principal rubric? And a second by Mr. Frieda. Further discussion on this?
Just make sure we take the national off of there.
Yeah.
Yes. Attributions at the end, but borrowed with impunity. Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Before you folks head out, and you're certainly welcome to do that at this point, I joked with Jana that we weren't going to applaud her, but we are going to take a minute. I should have done this at the last meeting, but probably more appropriate now in front of the whole administrative team. It was a challenging summer, and it was a challenging summer with a lot of gaps and holes and things that we were normally used to. One of that was in leadership and with positions. And I want to formally and publicly thank Mr. Nitto, Mrs. Mellon. They rose to the occasion and did things that were well out of the realm of what they were hired to do. And what their role, dictates that they do. And it was a long summer, and a lot of work was put into it, and both of them really demonstrated quality leadership. And you helped hire this magnificent group of folks. So I'd like to publicly thank both of you.
To piggyback on that, I would like to ask the board, because these ladies did not get an opportunity to use their vacation time this summer, that the vacation time that they did not have rolled over would be allowed to carry over for this year, so that, and perhaps even to the next 2 years, so that they can use it. Because this summer, they didn't take that time.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mrs. Moore, second by Mr. Lewis. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye, thank you.
And I'll just say to the community before the team leaves for the evening, we as a school board are very, very confident in this administrative team and very happy with all of our new hires as well. It was, we were nervous at the onset of the summer with where we're going to find quality people, and we certainly did. So, thank you, folks. But
Thank you.
You're welcome to head out. I know it's an early day tomorrow.
Can we go back to those minutes before we get them?
Why did she?
Have you found, she hasn't found it yet, so.
Okay. I just don't want to forget them.
All right.
Well, we've tabled it in the event that I'll bring it back to the next meeting,
Yeah.
so I'll make sure that it's on there.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe. Let's, I think we need to keep the SAU admin team here. All right, so jumping into new business, the budget workshop request.
You have, and I'm going to kind of do this perhaps in conjunction, the old business has a budget development schedule revision. One of the things that I would like to ask the board to do, we've done a budget workshop towards the end of our formation of the budget to kind of go through, here's where we are, here's what we have, here's kind of the dress rehearsal, if you will. What I would like to do is ask for a budget workshop that you've given us your goals and your thresholds, if you will, as we're early in the development of the budget, rather than to have a full budget and then we're going to kind of, we would have liked to have seen, we would have preferred to. I would like to have that on the table first as we go in. Certainly, I have some things that I would like to say, here's some priorities, but I also would like to hear from you so that it can be a cohesive budget moving forward, and hopefully one that we don't have to poke many holes in because we've all been on the same page from the start. So we have a meeting on the 23rd. Now with a public hearing, it looks like it may be looking like a somewhat longer meeting. I really don't want to go much later than the 23rd because we start to get into a rush on trying to compile everything to have it to you in a month. So I don't know if we could meet next Monday night on the 16th, or if there's another date somewhere in between, that might be possible. And this is the first time that I've seen you to be able to ask this.
Right, yeah.
So,
my first thought was the public hearing that we had, we leave it open for an hour, but it doesn't
right, necessarily.
prevent us from doing any other business. I don't know that we need an extra meeting.
But it wouldn't necessarily be a workshop time either.
So you just want a workshop?
I'm just looking for a
Well, we've
workshop
done
for
that.
gals.
We've done
girls
that
to
in
be
recent
outlined.
years, and I like that. You
Right,
know,
and
it's-
we've done it kind of as once we have things compiled, here's
Yeah.
what we've got for questions.
Yep.
But before we even get to the compilation piece, to be able to say, here's some goals, here's some, are we looking at, here's a percentage limit, or here's what we are looking for you to focus on in light of what's happened here, and make sure that we have the same focus areas before we get into the nuts and bolts of really building the budget.
Yeah, I can work on the 16th.
I can make the 16th.
I can. I cannot be on the 23rd. I may be able to call in, so I'll be here on the 16th.
How does next week look for you, Mr. Lewis?
Busy as usual.
Yeah, this time of year, yeah. 6 o'clock, too early?
That's fine.
No? Okay.
Okay.
6 o'clock budget workshop next week.
Thank you very much.
When we have that, Joel, 16th, that next Monday?
Where are we meeting? Typically, we've met in the multipurpose room at Henry Wilson.
We have.
Is that where you want to meet? Since
we can.
I'm just thinking all of the administrative budget stuff is right there, easily
Right.
accessible.
That would work. It's a little airless if it turns out to be a warm night, but we can do that. Okay.
I'm fine to meet here. I was just making the suggestion.
Yeah. No, it is at least more handy to run back for pieces if we need to.
Well, we did it,
Yeah.
last year we did it in the library.
Library, yeah, at Henry Wilson as well.
2
Yeah.
years ago, was it
It was in the multipurpose room because the library was taken, and
Mhm.
so, either way, we can meet at Henry Wilson if you'd like.
Is it because we think this room's too small?
With all the administrators, yeah.
Because we all set up
Yeah, we all sit together.
in the
And I may or may not have
department
all
heads.
administrators and department heads there, we can try. Yeah.
I think
That
it's
would be important.
really
Yes,
important to do
yeah.
that.
Okay, then.
I really, because
Yep.
I have some really strong opinions this year on budget, and I think that anybody that can hear it should hear it. So.
Okay, I will get in touch.
Henry Wilson then?
It's
Should we do
probably the Henry Wilson Library just seemed more spacious.
It seems a little bigger.
6
More
o'clock,
table.
right?
6 o'clock.
If he's able to, I don't know.
Okay. Because
We'll just-
this is the goal setting, it's not necessary.
Yeah, I know, but
Yep, we can. I will see if we can get it taped. Yep.
and it'll be posted.
It will be posted,
It'll be posted.
yes.
People, welcome to come. All
While we're
right.
on the budget, we did get an email from New Hampshire School Boards Association offering for any budget committee member to partake in the budget workshops that they have up there. The only prerequisite is a school
One of
board
you
member.
attend.
I will happily do that if somebody wanted to go, or I don't know if you were planning on going to the budget workshop up at.
Yeah, I haven't
Do you have the
given a
dates on those,
decision.
Penny?
I didn't open up my
Okay.
email.
All right.
I did pass that along to the budget committee as well. I haven't heard any responses,
All right, so
other than
if
they wanted
there's-
to know about the fee.
Yeah,
So-
it is a $50 fee per person.
That part I
That's all.
remembered.
Yeah.
And I believe one of the nights was,
There's a live streaming one too.
okay, the live streaming one is Thursday, I believe.
Yeah.
Because there was, I think, one tonight and one Thursday. And I believe they are live streaming Thursday as well.
And Mrs. McElhenney, was there discussion at the last budget committee meeting about having a joint meeting with us?
No, I thought you were going to
Okay.
reach out to the chairperson.
I did.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
and I
so-
didn't mention it because I didn't know where you were in that.
She may have, maybe she forgot. I wrote, and I'll just read it, to Jody Connolly. I said, "Hi, Jody, hope all is well. The school board has asked me to reach out and see if perhaps there was a time we could have a joint meeting this fall to discuss our approach to budget season this year and where our thoughts are in terms of needs, concerns, etc. would you ask the committee if that's something they'd be interested in doing? And then she said, sounds like a good idea. She would not be at the meeting on Wednesday, but she would ask Mr. Henry to check with the board for available dates. So that didn't happen? Okay. So she may have forgotten just to ask him, so I'll just reach out to her again and see if that's something that we could put together, because we thought that was a good idea.
So yes, it is live streaming on Thursday, and the budget workshop itself was on Monday, so I'm a little late.
Well, actually, they're doing it twice. So they're doing it tonight, and they're live streaming it. They're doing it again on Thursday and live streaming that one.
Right.
So, trying to accommodate folks up in the North Country.
Yeah.
Okay, negotiations.
Okay.
We've only received one formal request at this point.
We've
correct?
only received one formal request. We do have some pieces that have come up. I wanted to make sure that we had the two parties who will be our negotiating team. I believe right now we have one. And so if that's still Mr. Frieda?
Yeah.
Okay. And so we do need to replace Mrs. Cardinal. So that's part of what this is. And then we have a piece to discuss with you in non-public leading into the negotiations. Right now we have a tentative date of the 17th. This is for the custodian. Yes. So we have a tentative date for our first meeting with them on the 17th, which is next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I do need whoever Mrs. Cardinal's replacement would be to be available for them.
We didn't really decide that it was necessarily going to be Mr. Frieda or Mrs. Cardinal. Who did the custodians last time?
I didn't.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
You did. Just
You
one
did that?
person?
No.
No, it was 3 years ago. So.
Was it Mr. Petrie? I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine to negotiate with the custodian.
Because we will also be asked, probably fairly soon, to open up negotiations with the Teachers
Right.
Association. Okay. Do you want me to work with you with the custodians?
Sure.
And it's next Tuesday, it's set?
Well, we have a tentative date. I told them that this was our next meeting and that committee had not been
Right, I saw the
formally-
email. Right, okay.
So Terry has set it aside and is looking for not only that it's a confirmation for that date and would like to have our goals ahead of that meeting.
Okay.
What was the time?
I believe it's at 6 p.m. I can confirm that in just a minute.
I can do that. Unless someone's chomping at the bit.
I'll do the teachers again.
Okay. And since the request is coming to open up negotiations with the
6
Teachers
p.m.
Association, why don't we decide Mr. Frieda's volunteered to do teacher negotiations? Does someone else have an interest in doing that?
I'm fine to.
I would rather not do both.
I'm fine to do both.
I just don't feel comfortable enough yet doing that, so.
Okay.
I don't have the time.
Okay, so Mrs. Moran and Mr. Frieda. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Are we going to get a reminder on that meeting? I don't want to just start driving to the lake.
I will remind you.
And forget it. I need a
I will remind you.
All right. Approval of the special ed coordinator job description.
I'm going to let Mrs. Donito speak to that.
Yes.
So in your packet, we discussed making this a teacher, a position that would go on the CBA for the teachers. As such, I went through the description and removed any of the supervisory duties that might have been part of it. And so what you see is proposed at this time. The essential function being that this position would function district-wide as opposed to being attached to the high school. That some of those duties that have been performed by the special education coordinator can be turned over to the department head. Some of which are adding in
accommodations for the state testing or for the SAT, PSAT. So some of those things, as they're bubbling up and as we're finding them, those are being transferred to the department head at this time. That's one of the things that seems to have come up otherwise. Otherwise, the position would be one that would function district-wide, mostly because we have new teachers all over. We have new teachers at Henry Wilson, one that is just in his second year, a brand new spanking new one for a life skills teacher, and then I believe 3 new teachers up at Valley View, a new teacher here at the high school. So actually, the high school winds up having the more experienced team at this time.
And we still have one position to fill.
We still have one position to fill at Valley View.
This position was advertised.
Correct.
And is there a nomination coming forward at some point?
Not at this time. We wanted to make sure that you would approve the description
Okay,
before.
that's what's going to be my next question, because I wasn't sure how quickly you moved on that. Okay.
Trying to put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, no, I know.
I'll make the motion to accept the job description for special education coordinator.
Just a comment, I found one typo that we might want to fix.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. McElhenney.
Which I marked in there. It's under other duties. It says, at any time with or without cause, and I'm assuming you mean with or without cause.
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Discussion on the job description, position description? Mr. Lewis.
Just brainstorming, under working environment, do we set us up with any handicap issues we were physically able to perform?
This is just the boilerplate material that we put in for our job descriptions in terms of what's required physically. So I guess I would
Just a
defer
concern.
to the superintendent.
It is, these pieces have been vetted by legal. We are looking to include those so that someone comes in and understands what the expectation is. And then if someone already in the position becomes unable to do that, certainly under ADA, there are accommodations that we can make. But this is what the job entails.
They're blindsided by the prejudice.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Under terms of employment, number 4, I'm assuming you probably wanted to lengthen that just as clear from.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Ooh, nice.
Yes.
I didn't see that.
Clearly, you must be. Thank you.
Clearly a draft. Thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor as amended? I'm a no. Sorry.
That's okay. You're being consistent.
I'm going to be consistent. I really didn't think that this was more administrative in nature, so. Okay. Budgetary fund balance.
We've already voted on that as part of the financials.
Thank you. The bid of the sound system. Oh, for Henry Wilson?
Yes.
Okay. Were we looking at Farmington High too? Oh.
Farmington High School fell under 5,000. They're actually coming this Friday to start
Okay.
putting up, they just need the speakers with the entire sound system.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So at the end of last year, I went out to a couple of vendors asking for quotes. I actually went out to the tech director listserv to ask for who their preferred vendors were regarding sound systems. Only 2 names really came out. I went out to each. I only heard back from one at the time. And it turned out to be someone who has grandchildren here in the Farmington School District and had attended an event where he said, I really would like to help with the sound system at Henry Wilson. So I let him know at the time that we would have to go out to bid for the more intensive system requirements. At the high school, when they came out, it was realized that really what we needed new speakers. The speakers were all blown. The sound system is in excellent condition, but the speakers were blown, and to maybe fly them out and provide more protective hardware for them. So Larry, we're going to be using the lift, and we're going to be trying to fly them up and put protective hardware on them. They were originally slated to go in the summer, but they were back ordered because I would like some that are also Bluetooth and have other configurations so that we can allow for connecting
separately to them. So for instance, we had concerns about connecting to the sound system for gym classes, and I didn't want that. We wanted to be able to lock the major sound system down, but the speakers still need to be available sometimes. So we have an option there if we wanted to open that up to allow to connect with speakers with Bluetooth or other systems like that. And so those were on back order. They're now in, and they had to reschedule twice. They're coming Friday. The Henry Wilson system, however, is very antiquated.
Yeah.
I had someone come out and thoroughly look at this system, and at the time, I said, I just want to know where we're at. I want to know what we can keep, what we should give up, and what's time to go. And one thing they said, they said, well, first of all, your DVD and CD player are fine. There's just nothing really any newer that they're fine. But your mixer, your amplifier, which are things we knew already. Your speakers, we had blown several speakers. We have one that's way up there that's just kind of art at this point because it doesn't work at all. And it's and so some of the things that we took into account were having them better protected, having them in a way that's more accessible to newer technology such as mobile devices and able to connect in with a Bluetooth and all the different types of technology we have for sharing playlists and music and sound. Also making sure we had access to wireless mic and lavalier options for presenters and so forth. So I had them go through all of our systems and kind of look at different options. And then I went out to bid because the quote that was given for that was over our amount, which is $5,000. So I went out to bid. At the time, we didn't get a response, so I extended it. And I went out to 3 vendors, which you have an email for. I always try to reach out to at least 3, and even though one was newer to me, I reached out and said, hey, I heard that you sometimes work with sound system. I'm trying to get some more interest, and here's our bid. We had it on the site and so forth. We only had the 1 bid come back. Again, it's not a huge bid we're going out with. When you think about it, $5,000, $6,000, but if you look at the cost of the hardware and what that company is actually going to make after the hardware and the amount of time and energy going into the legalese of an RFP bid process, there's a lot of bigger fish out there that make a lot more on. It's a small bid for them. But AV Access, like I said, they had a vested interest in Farmington already. It's part of their family. So they were the one that came back. However, you know how I like to be with bid processes. I'm sorry, I know it's thorough, even though there's the 1, but that's how I do it. So when I do the RFP, I create a table for the vendor so they know exactly what I'm looking for. And then I take that list, that table, and I turn it into a rubric, and then we have at least 3 of us sit and we score it together and so forth. Not so hard to score this one, there's only the 1, but we still fairly look at it. And again, I went out and extended, made sure I noted on the website, made sure I emailed the vendors. I went out, I've extended it. So I've outlined the rubric and the information so you can go over forward the specifications. I also involved Mr. Shagnon, who gave a lot of the other Mr. Shagnon back there, Brian Shagnon, so he could also let know what things that he's seen and so forth. And so tonight, that is the bid that's come back. And they've had a lot of vested interest in our community as it is, so I'm very pleased to see them put the bid together.
I'll make the motion that we accept the bid from Access AV in the amount of $6,480 for Henry Wilson Audio.
Motion by Mrs. Moore and second by Mr. Frieda. Discussion?
This is budgeted for?
This is, go ahead.
Yep, so this was voted earlier on to come from the capital reserve for the equipment fund. We had already had that approved. The amount for the high school fell under the $5,000, and we had approval amount up to
11.
Okay, they have it at the root of their mouth, they're already 11. So that was already put in there to go up to that
So
amount.
this money's coming, something that was left over from Farmington High School?
It's coming from a capital reserve fund.
Capital reserve fund for equipment.
Yes.
I heard her say something about Farmington High School. This is
Well, there's
2
They're getting
things.
2 speakers.
We were looking at both systems.
The total amount from the capital reserve fund that was approved was $11,000. The $6,480 would be from
From that 11.
From that 11 for this, and the
other piece for the high school fell under the $5,000 bid threshold. So.
Do you happen to know the number of what the number at the high school is?
I do, I'll have to pull it up. I think it's just under 4,000, but I have to look over there and get it. But I do have the number.
Yep. Mrs. McElhenney, you had raised your hand.
Just a question. Well, first off, just thank you for this. I love your formatting. I love the rubric. This is very thorough. It does indicate on one of the pages that there's an additional possible add-on of $109. Would that be over and above the amount that he had listed here?
I believe that's included. If you look at the breakdown page on the last.
Is it for shipping?
That is that was in the breakdown of the total amount. If you go to the page that looks like
Bluetooth audio
this.
receiver.
Yeah.
See right here?
Okay.
It's included in the price.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not an additional.
No. Yeah. And what I did.
Is accessing these things through Bluetooth password protected?
Yes, you can lock it down. Those are some of the things. Oh, and I also put in there to have training too for each of us so that we can sit and have some training on the system so that we can ask those specific questions related to security and so forth.
Yeah.
But yes, it is. Quid aren't going to be able to just
Someone
hop
with a
into
cell
the
phone.
cell phone. And
Right, no, you can't jump on and knock someone else
If I
off.
can, since we're at the discussion level, I really think what's important, and it isn't reflected in any of this, is procedurally, especially with our two building administrators, or four at Farmington High School and Henry Wilson, is to have no student access to this. I get it. It's like, hey, go turn the system on for gym class and stuff, but it really, having the opportunity and privilege to use these systems during athletic seasons is so frustrating when everything is configured correctly and then you get in there and wires are hanging and stuff. So we really procedurally have to make sure that we limit the amount of people that access this thing. Unfortunately, that's how you keep a good PA system.
And that's why I was looking at having options for if we're going to use a speaker, but we don't want access to the full sound system, depending on what it is. I wanted to have a way to access just a speaker without having, like what you mentioned.
And I would say to the community and the people watching, this was not just a move to improve the sound system during athletic events. Every ceremonial and celebratory event that we have takes place in these gymnasiums of the utmost importance, whether it's National Honor Society inductions, graduation, all of these highlighted events. So in the concerts, it was just something that needed to be done. So thank you.
Access to the other two, you said you had three?
No, they did not.
Reached out, this is going and came in, okay.
No, in fact, Mr. Jett, it was a graduation that he was sitting through, so when he reached out to me. And I did also get 2 quotes for the speakers in the high school so that if the RFP went over, I could go with the lower quote. One was for 4 speakers flown up, and one was for 2. So I did get 2 separate quotes if I needed to.
Thank you.
And then I guess just to let the public know, it looks as though the time frame to install looks around October 22nd and 23rd, so it's nothing that's going to happen immediately. It's going to be a couple weeks out.
Right. I put that into the RFP because I had seen where some take a little while. I wanted to let it be known that we kind of wanted it done sooner than later.
Oh, the lift in there, is that going to interfere with gym time, or is this going to be done on a weekend or at night?
Well, now that it depends on when we accept the bid, then I will talk to them, and they also have to schedule us in.
Yeah.
So for instance, with the high school, they had to reschedule twice because the speaker, I wanted it in the summer, but they were on back order, and then they had to reschedule due to something they had going on in their company, so it ended up being this Friday, which it is what it is. But it's just 2 speakers going in versus an entire sound system, so that's not too bad. I prefer it to be on a weekend. I come in on the weekends, but it has to be when AV Access, of course, can come in. I don't want it on a Friday night when we have certain events going on, because that is not fun.
We also need to look at the fact that the gyms are used by the 500 on Saturdays and often Sundays. So that's going to be, we will certainly have to work with them around that, and that's,
And I think the 500 would be willing to work with us as well.
Because they will also benefit from
And I think if we needed to, we could have, Ryan and I could bring out some of the portable speaker systems like we've done for other things. If they needed some sort of speaker system while we're working, we could do something for them. So those are some options we have.
It's more the idea if we have a gym full of children,
Oh, I
they
know.
probably aren't
And
going
trying
to
to
be
go up in
installing.
the lift.
Yeah.
Yay, rides. No,
I
it's
can
not-
dunk now.
It's probably the only way I'd ever do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think primarily the 500 uses it during the winter months, and
They're using it
one of
now.
the vice president, I'm talking about the PA system
Yeah.
for night games and things.
Okay, yeah.
And the gentleman who's the vice president, who's in charge of the basketball program, does this for a living. So, I mean, this is somebody that I would feel comfortable as a board member and trusting with being able to access it, because that's what he does. So, but anyway, we've got a motion and a second to approve this bid for $6,480 to access AV. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I give this back to you, Jen?
Yeah, there you go.
Reuse these folders?
Yes.
We can recycle.
Thank you very much.
UNH. What's this now? Yeah.
Okay. So we are involved in the UNH TREE program, which is Teachers in Rural Residency for Education. We have two, they refer to them as residents, they're intern teachers this year. And part of the federal funding that UNH receives is looking for matching funds from UNH or from districts who are working with them. And before the air sucks out of the room, we're not actually giving them any money. They're looking for this in terms of an in-kind donation. Can we quantify what it is that we're providing to UNH for this program? The time with teachers, the access to the buildings, access to our materials, access to our students, if that can be quantified as well. And so looking at what they have asked for, the initial suggested price on it gave me pause. They're looking for up to $30,000 per resident. And I thought, oh, I'm not sure that works. But as we looked at what the resident would be, if that resident were coming in and we were paying the resident at a sub rate, that would be $80 a day per resident for 185 days, their full year, which would be $29,600 per resident, which we're pretty close to the $30,000 there. Looking at the time, or that's for the two residents, looking at the time with teachers spent outside their regular instructional time, but working during prep time, working after school with the residents on mentoring, working on instruction, building that sort of thing, plus our indirect cost rate gets us just over the $36,000 threshold. The 63, I juxtapose that, $63,000 threshold. So I would feel confident in being able to give a letter that says an in-kind donation of $60,000. But I'm also not going to sign that without the board's approval of that. They would like a response by the 15th of September, which again, I met with her just the end of last week, and I said, that's a little quick, but I will take it to the board and see if that's something that we can do. I feel, and I have another MOU to bring to you that appeared in my box today as well. I'm bringing MOUs to the board. I think it's important that you're aware of the agreements that we enter. And while I can speak on behalf of the district, I want to make sure that you're aware of the agreement that we're entering into. We are.
This is the first time?
This is we worked with them last year as they were in the first year working with the residents. Now they are in their residency where they are actually in our schools. And so now they're looking for the in-kind match. Because at first when she said, well, we're looking for matching funds, I went, whoa, this is not what we had talked about earlier, and I can assure you it's not budgeted. But if we're looking at quantifying what we're already providing, that part I think is easier to do. It's fairly common in matching grants. But again, it wasn't something I was going to put out there because, certainly to have someone come back and say, oh, well, Farmington is giving UNH $60,000 for their residents. We aren't. We're providing $60,000 worth of quantified resources to UNH as they are setting up their residency program. But we are not paying for our student teachers. And I want to make sure that's very clear as well.
How do we account for that?
Well, and that's why we sat down and said, all right, is there a way that I could quantify that? Can I say, at sub rate, this is what these people would be paid, this is what we would be doing if we had this person in to be helping in classrooms. They hold a degree but are not yet credentialed. So at the $80 a day sub rate, okay.
So this is student teaching.
This is student teaching.
And we call it residencies now?
Well, this is their program. It's a fast-track residency where students go through 1 year of training at the master's level, and then while they're with us, they're continuing classes. They're taking 2 classes during each semester during the time they're with us, plus intensives through the summer to finish that.
These 2 residents have been assigned already to staff?
Yes, they have. They're assigned to Cindy Hun and to, help me out, I just lost it, 4th grade, Jelinas, Jess Jelinas.
And she switches.
Yeah, and she'll switch half year to do,
And is it,
Rachel
and,
Dean
I
does
mean,
the
it's
second
been
half
a
of the
long
year.
time since I student taught, but is it like gradually this residence
Yes.
takes over a little bit?
Yes, it's a
And
gradual release of
have
responsibility.
the parents of these two assignments been informed?
That I will need to check with the principals, because that happened before I was back.
I would assume it would be,
I was-
you know?
Mhm.
It's-
That's full year?
It's full year, yes.
Because it used to be semesters years
Right.
ago.
It's a full year residency now.
And they
So
haven't
they're-
started as of yet.
Yes, they're in.
They're already there.
Yep, they came in for our first 2 days of teacher training with all staff, and then right in.
They still go through the background check?
Yes, yes,
At our expense or UNH's?
UNH's.
Can I ask these questions?
Yes, you do. You do.
I'm okay with making the motion of putting forward $63,000 in an in-kind donation to UNH.
Is that the right word?
Is that the right?
It is.
Is that the right amount?
There's a motion by Mrs. McElhenney. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Frieda. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Disposal
As
of
long as they get a
vehicles.
passing grade of a B or above, right?
I do have one other MOU that is not on
Okay.
there. This one is for our health champions, our wellness folks, and this has been an ongoing program, and it's the type of thing that when I came in the first year, it was, this is our last year, and we won't get funding for this again. And we're on our 4th last year, but it's been refunded. And so when I was here in the spring, it was, we really don't see that we're going to get the funding. And lo and behold, this appeared in my box, and we have the funding again for this year. So this is very similar to the same MOU that we have had, but I want to go ahead and bring this to your attention and let you know that it's here. I'm happy to share it with you for your perusal, and would like your permission again to sign this one to continue our relationship.
I'm on the
probably-
committee, yes, I have.
Okay. A motion?
Sure. I didn't know we needed a motion for it, or just a blessing.
Well, okay, a blessing is fine too, so.
Blessing.
Okay, thank you.
We don't have any objections, so there you go.
No objections, thank you very much.
All right. 9A, we're going to table because we are going to reschedule.
Did we want to discuss disposal of vehicles?
Oh, sorry. I had checked it off already. Disposal of vehicles.
So we have 3 school buses that I became aware of this summer. that we need to dispose of. We have one minivan, and we haven't done a surplus vehicle removal in quite some time, so I put together kind of a bid packet, and it's been vetted by the attorneys to take a look at and make sure that it's above ground. But I wanted to make you aware that we are going to be trying to hold something this fall to get the vehicle sold. We're going to follow the district's disposal policy, which is to first try and sell. I do want to make the board aware that I've been informed by Ms. Ellis that the 3 buses are not going to be able to be started because they have sat for a length of time. And so, short of having a mechanic come in and work on the buses that we're trying to sell, we're going to be looking at selling them as is. We're going to try and have a viewing day so people can come and look. But I also wanted to make the board aware that if we don't happen to find a buyer for 3 school buses or 3 separate buyers, I'm also looking at the next piece of the disposal policy, which is donations, to see if we can donate them to some type of charity for them to resell at auction. And I'm early in that process. I have a couple of different people, different organizations I've reached out to. The issue we have has to do with if they can tow them. So that may limit the organizations we could donate to. But I just want to make the board aware. You'll be seeing an ad going out in the paper to that effect, and that's what it's all about.
Check the Rochester Fair schedule.
I was just going to say, the Derby's coming up for the buses.
We do know the former superintendent of Farmington was second place on Loudon, the school bus.
Who?
Brian Blake.
Oh, really?
He was driving. They have a race up there.
Yeah, over in Loudon. That's where he lives.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm not going for his record.
That would also make a great football fundraiser. Take the sledge, $1 a whack.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Where would you do that?
It's not really hard because we need it in pieces.
So you don't need any vote on this, you just...
No, I'm just making you aware because I didn't want you to think I was selling you fleet.
Very good. Thank you. All right, 9A.
So it's 3 buses and 1 van?
Correct.
Okay.
Does the van start?
3 buses and 1 van.
No.
I have heard she got the van started, but we have been also advised that we are not allowed to let anybody test drive, even in the parking lot. So even if we can get it started, they can look at it and they can listen to it. A staff member will start it and a staff member will turn it off.
Okay. Are these still housed down?
They're behind the high school, which is...
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, 9A, we're going to table because we are going to have another public hearing on the 23rd. And I would just say to folks watching and folks that will watch this that, Mr. Brown, who joined us early this evening and pointed out that procedurally he wasn't sure if we followed something correctly, that's the way to do it.
Right.
That's the way to work with your local boards and to come in and say, hey, folks, I'm not sure you did this 100% correctly, and I really appreciate that approach. So thank you, Mr. Brown, for that.
The statute, we did take a look at it.
Yeah.
It does read that the subject needs to be listed in the notice, which it was. But if it was not as clear as it could have been made, I think erring on the side of caution is certainly doable.
Yep. I have no problem with doing that, so thank you. Okay, so do we want to vote just to table that or just procedurally now?
Procedurally, I'll motion to table.
Motion to table 9A till the 23rd, second by Mr. Frieda.
When you had already voted to do to redo the public hearing.
But we're going to vote. We might as well put that on the agenda to vote so we don't forget,
Will do.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 9B is budget development schedule.
Okay, so I have a revised budget development schedule. It's what's in your packet is a markup version, which maybe I find difficult to read.
So I don't like it.
If you can pass that down to Sherry, please. I think the others have, but you're welcome to.
Thank you.
So the first part of this doesn't really change much that was in there, other than it backs out a little bit what happens at the administrative level. Rather than saying on September 11th, this budget is due, because so many...
Turn it over, Mr. Lewis, your agenda. Oh, I thought you were wondering where it was on the agenda.
This is what you just passed me, Penny.
So somebody's agenda.
Oh.
Linda,
Oh,
two
sorry.
sheets.
Oh,
an
it's
agenda.
Linda's agenda.
Nope, actually, that's Ruth's.
Oh, that's mine. Okay.
You got a
Sorry.
copy for Stan.
All right, got one here.
Oh, you got it.
I got it, okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you for sending my agenda home. It backs out at that level how quickly those pieces need to be gelled, because there is so much interaction. Curriculum needs to meet with all three buildings in order to do that. Technology needs to meet with all three buildings, and to try to separate those out makes it very difficult to give a good solid number to you. I did put in there, and I was thinking that the regularly scheduled meeting was the 16th, not the 23rd, so I will change that, but we will have a budget hearing now on a budget workshop, rather, on the 16th, so thank you for that. Our administrative meetings are listed. By the 25th, I've asked the staff to make sure that we have any staffing needs, if they're planning to add or subtract any type of positions, that we have that to start the overall budgeting. We're looking at final entries made to the budget by administration, and then a second budget workshop like we've done the last couple of years on the 28th of October, so that we can go through that. Here's our first run. You get to take a look at it, poke some holes in it, and then we'll begin our formal presentations on November 4th to the board. And those will be at meetings like this and on camera. Budget workshops are open to the public. Looking at the rest of these, there's not much change down through. I have already spoken to our attorney to put us on her dance card for deliberative session. She said, "You already have that date?" I said, "Oh, yes, I do. 9 a.m. And so the principal changes were the administrative pieces and then those two budget workshops. And we do not have date. We have tentative public hearing with the budget committee, and then our presentation to the budget committee. Those will need to be set in conjunction with the budget committee. So those are highlighted as question marks.
Is this something that's being sent to them just so they can look at some of those
What
ideas?
I would like to do is, if this is, something that you're fine with moving forward, then send copies of this with Mrs. McElhenney to the next budget committee meeting, so that they have that to review and to.
Is January 10th the last day for petition warrant articles, period, or is it just for those that are over 100,000? Is there another one?
It's the last day for over 100,000. The 14th is the final date for filing petition warrant articles that are for the petition warrant articles. And then final date for the budget committee to deliver budget and warrant article recommendations is the 23rd.
Okay. Sorry, I missed that first.
And I just have a question, and I was hoping you guys might be able to remind me. When Mrs. Cardinal was sitting on the board, she had come up with an idea for the schedule to add on. I want to say, was it just the revenues that she wanted to have a special date for to make sure that we had it in?
That's on for December 2nd.
Yeah, was that the only one that she had mentioned? I can't recall.
I know that was voted as the first December meeting. That was voted that by the first meeting we had in December, you wanted those revenues. I
can't
don't
recall.
remember if there was.
I'll look into it, because I want to say that I don't remember if that was the only one, but I remember thinking at the time, I'm like, oh, you know what, that's great. We should really put that on the schedule. It was something I want to say that almost caught us off guard last year, the year prior, so I'll look into it.
I think the year prior, it was when we knew the revenues and at what point. And so typically we get the adequacy aid by the 15th of November. And by that point, we have just about everything we're probably going to get. We have a few more stragglers come in, and that's when we say, okay, here's our hard line, this is what we know, and here's what we're projecting based on 3-year projections, which is what I've done with a number of the grants in the last few years. And that's doable by the first meeting in December.
Okay.
Are you going to be wanting me that day? Because I can't be there. I have a
Okay.
procedure.
So,
What day is that?
the 28th for the second budget workshop.
Oh,
So
we can
if we
adjust
need
that.
to move that date, we could do that.
What are we expecting to accomplish at the second budget workshop?
The second budget workshop, I'm looking to be what we've done in the past, where it's kind of that, here's what we've compiled. Here's the first presentation, you get your notebooks, chance to go through it, ask general questions, so that we make sure that we don't miss something as we're presenting to the general public as well. If there are questions that you have, chances are they're questions that they will have as well.
Okay.
Sometimes when we've spent time in the weeds, it's tough to anticipate what it looks like to somebody who hasn't slept with the book this way for several weeks. So,
The board okay with this? I mean, I don't think we necessarily need to adopt it.
No,
Just
but we
the
might want to make
adjustments.
that change now for the October
What
28th.
do we want to look for? Do we have a calendar?
let's see, I have one here.
Not a brand new one.
Trying to remember when the
Can you
budget
do
committee
later
meeting
week,
is
or do
too
we
in that
need to
month.
I can do after the 30th.
Okay.
The
Do you want-
30th or after.
Do you want to look at the 31st?
Halloween?
Thursday night?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry,
Yeah.
Halloween.
That'd be a tough one.
I think that's
I can do the before. I can do the
Thursday.
Oh,
30th.
that pushes us earlier in getting everything else together too, so.
What's the week?
by one day.
The week before,
When
right.
is October 18th?
October 18th is a Friday.
Friday.
Okay, and then,
Figure, that's when the
right,
final entries to budget by administration, but then that gives Jan and I a week to finish getting
That's the week of
binders
my-
together.
It's my audit.
And,
the 15th
right,
through
so
the 18th.
that gives me the chance to get the binders together, because she will be otherwise engaged.
I will happily come hole punch and put binders together with you.
Okay, I may take you up on that.
what about the 24th?
So Thursday, that's fine.
Okay. Okay.
So that's-
24th?
What's that, the 28th?
It's a Thursday. Well, yeah, because she's going to be,
I won't be here.
Okay.
Thursdays, I
But you
go
can,
I
you
cook
can
for
get your
veteran school.
changes to one of us and we can,
Yeah.
you'll have the opportunity to go through
yeah.
it.
Okay.
I think that's my library meeting, but I can make it here for that instead.
Well, the night before, I just picked the 20, I was trying to go further out.
Was the 23rd better for you, Butch?
What day of the week? 23rd?
Wednesday.
A Wednesday?
Wednesday's the town budget meeting.
That'd be the budget committee meeting.
Right. So that's not going to work.
Well, not that week, they're the last one, aren't
No,
they?
they're the fourth Wednesday.
Well, that is the
sorry.
fourth Wednesday,
No,
because
we
there's
can al-
five, there's
Yeah,
5
the
Wednesdays that
23rd
week.
is, yeah.
That month, rather.
And Jan was saying that the week of the 28th is out, period.
Right.
Yeah, so let's go, we'll just do the 24th if we.
I can do the 20th.
Because nobody wants to meet on Friday.
Oh, you have libraries.
That's fine, I can,
And if you have changes or you can just pop them in an email and somebody can.
It's United Nations Day. The fourth. All right.
Could be apropos.
it's an omen.
All right, so we're good with this.
Thank you.
We did see already.
Yes, we did.
Oh, I mentioned, and I already covered the joint session with the budget committee, right?
Yes, you did. Public?
I'll reach back out to Jody.
Before we go on to public participation, we talked a little bit about the Title I grant last time at our last meeting. Are we prepared for that one yet? Yeah?
Yeah. Do you want to speak to that, or Misty, or I can speak to it, whichever?
Which Title I grant are we referring
The
to?
one that we had to, a deadline of the 30th, and we had
Yes.
to expend.
Yes.
So, yeah, where were we at with that?
Do you want to, I'll let you go ahead and I'll jump in.
Yeah. So we had already started looking at putting some things together. Misty came on at a very well-timed juncture, and was able to offer some insights and some of the programming that we were looking at. Ruth Ellen gathered some feedback from teachers who had used some of the software because of the short timeline. We were very limited as to what purposes we could use it for. We were able to use it for software, and we were able to use it, basically, we renewed our smart board technology, which the teachers use regularly in instruction.
Actually, we haven't had that, so we were able to get the smart board technology software.
And then there were two other pieces that are, I'll be honest with you, they're more curriculum-based, and I probably am not going to be able to speak to them as well as the other two ladies at the table here. But we were able to get that, and in conjunction with our remaining summer school salaries, we were able to get underneath the number that we needed to, so we won't be turning any of the funding back.
Excellent, thank you, ladies.
That's what we wanted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it was definitely a Herculean effort on their part. I appreciate very much, because that was day one. By the way, here's what we have. Let's hit the ground running. So I appreciate Jana had a lot of it lined up for us to then start vetting, and so thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anything else, folks, under old business? No? Any public participation at this time? Okay. I know, right? We'll pass the manifests around. Our next meeting, folks, will be Monday, September 23rd. Very big day.
Very big day.
I'll accept cash, cake.
Don't forget the 16th is our...
as our budget, yes. Our budget workshop is the 16th, and we're going to talk about hopefully trying to get that on camera. But I don't know how we're set up down there. But our next regularly scheduled board meeting is Monday, September 23rd, right here. I think we'll do 6:30, unless something comes up that we have to do at 6. Thank you to those of you who joined us from home, and those of you, a few of you, that came out this evening. I'll entertain a motion to go into you know what I wanted to congratulate? I was here over the weekend working on the wiffle ball tournament, and I could hear the celebration at the Congregational Church. And I think it's really neat that they, turned 200 and obviously have been recognized as a historical landmark, I guess, right, Mr. Frieder? Is that the way to say it? But to all of its membership, I could hear the bells chiming and the band going and the speakers, and it sounded, I didn't see the celebration, but it sounded like it was really, really well done. So congratulations to all of you.
I do want to ask, in the event that taping the 16th would be a problem at Henry Wilson, do we want to do it here?
I don't know if
I don't think we can all fit here.
Okay.
All right. We can try.
Okay. All right.
I kind of liked it because it was, it's a little less formal.
Right.
People are still welcome to come.
All right. So we will do our best to have it
It's
filmed.
just really some initial thoughts on our approach to it this year.
Even if it's taped.
It may end up being taped and then streamed the next day.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to go into non-public session 2 for nominations and resignations under RSA 91A:3, A, B, and C. So moved by Mrs. Moran. Second by Mr. Lewis. All those in favor by roll? Aye. Good night, folks.
Did we reaffirm our vote?
Whether or not we served in uniform, are veterans of a war in which freedom and free government are at stake. Our victory, won at staggering cost, will not be consolidated until we and our children and grandchildren know the manifest